Matthias Hashimi's day began like countless days before it, days so alike that one could doubt whether life truly moves forward or simply replays the same scene every morning. He woke up early, minutes before the alarm, not because his body had rested, but because sleep had long ceased to reach the depths of his soul. He sat on the edge of his bed in the spacious room whose glass windows overlooked the city, staring for a long time at the faint pre-dawn light. Everything in his life was meticulously organized: time, appointments, clothes, even emotions, or so he convinced himself. Matthias Hashimi, a brilliant businessman and owner of a vast real estate empire stretching across entire neighborhoods, was used to starting his day by reading financial reports before seeing his children's faces. It wasn't deliberate cruelty, but a silent escape from a void he never admitted existed. That morning, however, he felt something unusual. It wasn't physical pain or an obvious anxiety, but an internal heaviness, as if his chest carried a question with no words. He carefully put on his dark suit and tied his tie in front of the mirror, noticing for the first time in years the faint lines around his eyes, a silent reminder that time moves on whether one accumulates deals or ignores the heart. He left the room, walked along the long corridor where pictures of his late wife, Layla, still hung on the wall. He didn't stop to look at them, not in years. Stopping, he believed, meant collapsing, and collapse was a luxury he couldn't afford. Downstairs, the house was unusually quiet, a silence resembling that of a luxury showroom where everything is in place but life itself is absent. Adam and Salma had already left for school. He hadn't seen their faces that morning. He left them a brief note with the housekeeper, as usual. He stepped into the car and began reviewing his schedule on his tablet. Meetings, calls, signings, another day of success devoid of warmth. Yet that heaviness remained. Every clause he read felt meaningless, and every street he saw through the window seemed to belong to someone else. Suddenly, without planning, he said to the driver in a low but firm voice, "Return home." The driver hesitated for a moment, but obeyed. Matthias didn't know why he had said it. He only knew he could no longer ignore the inner voice urging him, for the first time in years, to be present, not just successful. His home stood at the edge of the city, a modern palace of glass and stone, an architectural masterpiece often featured in design magazines. Outside, it symbolized achievement. Inside, it bore witness to absence. Since Layla's death, everything had changed without changing at all. The furniture remained the same, the walls unchanged, but the laughter that once filled the house was gone, and no one tried to replace it. Layla had been more than a wife. She had been the heart of the home. She always said children don't need palaces, they need open arms. After her passing, Matthias did what he knew best. He fled to work. Adam, the eldest, had been 9 when his mother died, growing quieter, more observant, less demanding, learning early not to burden his father. Salma, younger, didn't understand death, but understood absence. She sought warmth everywhere, in the servants' glances and any passing smile, as if fearing the world might snatch it away again. Amid all this was Nora, the housekeeper, a quiet woman who never raised her voice or imposed her presence. She had come to the house 3 years ago and stayed because no one found reason to dismiss her. She performed her duties with exceptional care, beyond what was required, without complaint. Matthias barely noticed her. To him, she was part of the order, like the walls. But to Adam and Salma, she was entirely different. She listened, remembered the small details, how Adam liked his eggs in the morning, how Salma preferred her milk warm, not hot. She sat with them when they were afraid, reading stories softly, keeping the light dim because Salma feared the dark. She never tried to replace their mother. She simply existed. Nora herself bore a hidden wound. She had lost her only child in a tragic accident years ago and never spoke of it, nor sought pity. Yet when she was with the children, something inside her slowly healed, as if caring for them allowed her to breathe again. That morning, when Matthias paused at the house entrance, The golden light poured through the windows in a way he hadn't noticed in years. He entered, expecting the usual silence, but instead he heard laughter, real laughter, children laughing. He froze. It wasn't a fleeting sound, but a warm wave striking his chest, reminding him of something long forgotten. He stepped forward cautiously. At the dining room doorway, he stopped. The scene was extraordinary, shaking the very foundation of his life. A table covered with a simple cloth, traces of flour, chocolate stains, and two children with flushed cheeks laughing, chocolate on their clothes. A cake imperfect but real. Nora stood among them, laughing softly, removing chocolate from their faces, arranging chairs, sensing where joy hid and where sorrow lingered. Matthias felt a lump in his throat. It wasn't the cake nor the laughter alone that moved him. It was the simple truth that this house was alive, and he had been absent. When Adam saw him, his laughter stopped. Salma ran to him, hands smeared with cream, and hugged him without thinking. Matthias dropped to his knees, embracing them, crying freely. "Dad, you came early," whispered Adam. He nodded, voice broken. "I had to." From that moment, everything changed. Not suddenly, but with sincerity. He began arriving early, sitting with them, listening, making mistakes, learning. The house became less perfect, but more alive. Drawings appeared on the fridge, laughter in the hallway, the scent of cake randomly emerging. One quiet night, when a power outage occurred, Salma instinctively ran to her father's room. Instead of asking the staff to fix it, he opened his arms, seated her beside him, and read a story with a stammering yet tender voice. Adam sat at the door, listening, not admitting he needed it too. Nora watched from afar, a single tear slipping unnoticed. Every day, Matthias discovered new truths. He hadn't just lost his wife, he almost lost his children while alive. If he hadn't returned early, if laughter hadn't escaped from the dining room, he might have one day awoken to find Adam a man sharing nothing with him, and Salma a girl seeking love far from home. One quiet evening, Matthias stood at the dining room door, gazing at the table that witnessed a transformation he hadn't planned, and murmured, as if confessing to himself before anyone else, "A small decision saved me." That night, after Adam and Salma fell asleep, he sat alone in the living room. He didn't turn on the TV or open his laptop as he used to. He sat in silence, watching the garden lights reflect on the glass, seeing his life for the first time without ornamentation. He remembered the years spent fleeing home for work, fleeing pain, the loss of Layla, the helplessness before two children, asking every night when he would sit with them. He had thought money could compensate and luxury could create safety, but now he realized that safety isn't bought, it's lived. The next day, he summoned his manager and rearranged his life schedule, canceling unnecessary projects and refusing million-dollar deals simply because they would take him away from home. For the first time, he felt not loss, but liberation. Nora noticed the change without a word, seeing a father who once passed by his children like a guest, now sitting on the floor with them, helping with homework, laughing at mistakes, learning to be a father, not a manager. One evening, as Nora tended the garden, Matthias approached quietly. "I want to thank you again, truly." She looked up, surprised. "You didn't just care for the house, you saved my family without asking for anything." He paused, then added, sincerely, "I think you saved something inside me, too." She didn't know what to say. For the first time since losing her child, her pain had not been in vain. Months passed. The house became a place of memories rather than a tomb. Adam bolder, Salma less afraid. They no longer waited for their father's footsteps to fall asleep. They knew he would be there. One day, Matthias returned early, as usual, to find a colored note in childish handwriting. "Dad, thank you for staying with us." He sat quietly, finally understanding that the greatest achievement in his life wasn't a tower of glass or a successful deal, but the moment he chose to return home and stay. Nora, too, had found in that house something she hadn't realized she had been seeking: meaning. She hadn't replaced anyone, hadn't erased her loss, but shared genuine love born from an old wound. That quiet evening, the four of them sat together at the dining room table. No cake, no celebration, just a simple dinner and ordinary conversation, small laughs. Matthias looked at them and realized in his heart that this was true success, not owning the world, but having a place to return to, people waiting, and a heart large enough for all. And so Matthias didn't just change because he came home early that day. He changed because he finally decided never to leave again.